This video essay will be an autopsy on my personas throughout the years. All of these characters are or were OCs. OC stands for Original Character, which is a character created by an individual, usually for a fan base. For example, Warrior Cats, but can also be created for original lore as well. A persona is a character generated to represent the creator. Not all OCs are personas, and sometimes not all personas are OCs. Personas also aren't always created for lore, sometimes they are just used for self-representation on Twitch or a YouTube channel, for example. This video will be an autopsy, design analysis, and criticism on my past personas. We will only be looking at persona OCs, so any other original characters, past or present, will not be included. My IRL persona also won't count as she is a direct self-portrait and therefore not an OC. This is how I drew myself when I was 5 years old. I'm sure you're aware of most kids nowadays preferring for others to address themselves with the names of their favourite characters such as Elsa or Wednesday and or perceive them as such characters. I was no different from this, ranging from the names of Ariel to Bunny to eventually Bessie, as inspired by the Fimbles, to which I addressed myself and this interpretation of myself by. Due to my age and limited knowledge within the illustrative fields, my character style was very abstract and simplified. One certain classmate referred to my eye style as resembling dead eyes. Furthermore, my friend's mother thought the horns were devil horns, thus she referred to my persona as a devil, but in actuality they're sort of meant to resemble alien antennas. The third antenna in the middle was supposed to curl forward in theory, but due to my limited ability when I was younger I couldn't draw that, so I slowly drew it as a straight line. Obviously I can surpass that now. Here is a 2023 reconstruction. I have had to improvise a lot on her design due to 5-year-old Coral's abstract style. I have given her the attire, hair and palette similar to how I looked and dressed when I was 5, only aged up slightly, also updated her name to a more modern sounding Breaksley. Not much can honestly be remembered about her identity, but she did serve as a sort of narrative/guiding voice for other characters in roleplay. Although their origin is unknown, I have given the antennas reason for their being due to her being part alien from the planet Imagination. There was a long break from personas after Bessie. Eventually, upon becoming a part of the MLP community in 2011, I did utilise my pony-sonas to bridge some of that gap. But in 2013 I had created a new official persona to run alongside. This character was Star Glaze, a Californian gamer girl with fuchsia hair and a leather jacket. She spoke with a heavy Valley Girl accent, sort of like this with lots of vocal fry, and she had a passion for gaming and spellcasting. Her personality was determined, ambitious and intelligent. Think Twilight mixed with a little bit of Rainbow Dash. Songs such as the Potential Breakup Song and Misery Business I had associated with her due to their passion and self-perseverance. Originally her name was Star Blaze, as inspired by Blaze the cat, and she had purple hair, but I then changed it to Glaze for more originality. She was solely created as a self-insert for an original lore called Parties in Paradise, originally Parties in Exile. She was friends with Tilly, Sword, Twyla, Cooper, Fuchsia, Muffin and Jack, aka the Gemstones, which she was part of, which was later renamed to the Tsunamis, of which were characters ditched in 2016.
Just one psychological drama after another.
The Tsunamis and Parties in Paradise continued, however I decided to change my self-insert character to match my pony-sona. Star Glaze was simultaneous during the time Starlight Destiny and then Starla were my pony-sonas, in which you can see the resemblance with the semantic field of stars and the pink hair. When I switched to Marzipan Sunday as my pony-sona, Marzipan Sunday also became my self-insert for PIP. Like her pony self, she shares the green eyes and long black hair as well as the occupation of animal taming, particularly of wildcats, also having a pet ocelot called Annabelle who died at the end of her backstory. She notably wore a leopard print skirt which reflects her passion surrounding them. Also my 2015 denim jacket. Unlike Star Glaze, she was not a Valley girl nor a gamer girl. Her accent and voice began as a medium-pitched mix of British and American, not necessarily mid-Atlantic or transatlantic, just half-sounding American and half-sounding British. Sort of, these are all different colours, sort of voice rather than these are all different colours or these are all different colours. Kind of like the type of voice a non-native English speaker would develop from learning a blend of normal English and American English. Her personality resembled a mix of Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie, and some songs that I had associated with her were Pressure Off by Duran Duran, Good Time by Owl City, and I Want It All from High School Musical 3. In 2016, I changed her attire to a green shirt with a denim skirt, also eventually shortening her hair slightly, as it felt more practical regarding the nature of her work, as well as having her second name changed a couple of times. In early 2015, it began as Sunday to reflect her sweet demeanour, but later in the year I had changed it to Feline in order to reflect her work with cats. But I later changed this to Citrine due to the negative connotations of feline. Citrine, like Sunday, reflected her sweet and warm demeanour. In 2016, I then changed her name to Lightning, like Grease Lightning, to reflect her speed, but in 2019 I removed it, making her name solely Marzipan, where Marzi is her first name and Pan is her last. In 2016, she had lost the American part of her accent, making her fully English like myself. The abolishment of the tsunamis was solely because I wanted to focus more on the royal characters of New Equivalus, as I felt more connected to them. Marzi then became part of the royals, originally as a sergeant with the animal taming, but then as a scribe, to then being nobility herself. The Tsunamis and royal family previously coexisted, where the royals acted as mentors to the Tsunamis, but eventually they overtook the Tsunamis as my main focus, and thus I no longer saw their purpose of being in the lore. Centuries later, in future generations of New Equivalus, however, I promise that the Tsunamis will be there. In 2019, I removed the animal taming aspect to Marzipan's character and replaced it with writing and artistry. The scar she had on her hidden eye was also changed from being a result of previous work in industry/factories as opposed to being from a tiger or leopard, before it was removed entirely in the middle of the year. At this point, she was also described as Marzi or Marzipan, the bringer of conflict, in her backstory, as inspired by Mars, the bringer of war, which is an orchestral suite. Some songs I had associated with her personality were energetic pieces such as Running in the 90s by Initial D and Can't Hold Us by MacLeod. Like how Star and Marzipan were two separate characters but filling in the same role, Marzipan and Marianne are two separate characters despite sharing the same shortened name of Marzi. Marianne also goes by many other nicknames of Mari, Marie, Maria, Mars or Mars, Ari, Aria and Anne. As for me as the author, I prefer Mar or Marzi, otherwise it gets very confusing. Although the username Marzipan Studios was coined because of Marzipan Sunday, I have decided to keep it as my username as a sort of wordplay on Marzi and Marianne. Marianne's name is inspired by the Sisters of Mercy song with the same name, despite being spelt differently. Marianne is also pronounced as Mari-Anne as opposed to Marian. The R's are also ideally meant to be rolled as Marianne, but I'm very weak at rolling them myself. As 2020's isolation allowed many to rediscover themselves and their individuality, I changed my persona to reflect this. Marianne's hair began as a very dark purple, which was lightened over time as it looked too black. Originally, Marzipan Sunday's hair was secretly going to be a dark purple despite it visually looking black, which is where the inspiration had come from. I myself have never had purple hair in my life. This is also why Marzipan's gacha design had a purple gradient in her hair as opposed to grey to allude to this. I kept Marzipan's green attire and incorporated it into Marianne's design, giving her her signature Viridian gown. This attire also fits a lot more into the medieval-inspired period of New Equivalus, her kingdom. Originally her collar was topped with a Japanese uniform-inspired look, as influenced from gacha, but in spring 2021 I had changed it to a Victorian-inspired lace as inspired by a pit crew I had made. Recently though, I have updated it to be more soft as opposed to sharp, as to fit with her shape language a lot better, as well as returning the black tips to her skirt that were added in 2020 originally but were soon forgotten about. Marianne's hair is supposed to be waist length in order to reflect my hair length, but due to my art style consisting of thick hair, and in some illustrations I have liked to go crazy with the hair length, it makes it appear a lot longer than it actually is. This had also happened a lot with Jen's hair, which is also supposed to be waist length. Marianne, like Marzipan, has green eyes to reflect my hazel eyes, which tend to be perceived as green by non-hazel-eyed people. Star's eyes are only blue, as I have always envied and admired blue eyes. Marianne is soft-spoken British English like myself, mainly received pronunciation but with a slight northern influence, so her voice, or my voice overall, is vaguely similar to Jen's, except his has this more sarcastic undertone to it, as well as sounding more northern and a little bit more Scottish with my attempted Scottish burrs. Mine is more like, don't jump in the river, whereas Jen's would be, don't jump in the river. Also note that Jen tends to use a lot more non-verbals than me. Due to being a scribe and an illustrator, Marianne is always seen with a quill behind her ear. This quill is eternally inked via magic and is very special to her. She gets very paranoid when it is behind her ear and she doesn't know of its whereabouts. She also only lets people she really trusts use it, such as her sister Crimson or her trusted friend Jen. Marianne notably has elf ears. Despite this, she is 0% elf. This is only a genetic mutation. This began as I hadn't fully established my style of drawing human ears. Usually I hide the ears with the hair, but with Marzi I couldn't, as I needed to illustrate the quill behind her ear. Thus, because my style of ears was unstable, they eventually formed to appear as elf ears, but I decided to embrace it and incorporate it as part of her character. Another notable feature of Marianne's is her eyelids. This was a borrowed feature from late 2019 Marzipan, where I made the eyelids orange in order to provide a more original touch to her character. In Marianne, the glittery orange eyelid reflects artistic innovation, like it is visually part of her. The last name Symphony has nothing to do with music. It is simply a family last name. Marianne's last name is Symphony, like her sister, Crimson Symphony. Symbolically, it represents the sorrows that their family, particularly the older generations, had endured. Her personality is described as shy, creative and clever. Think Fluttershy mixed with Twilight. Some songs I associate with her are Genesis by Grimes, Moral of the Story by Ashe, and Chamber of Reflection. Think calm aesthetic songs focusing on ideas of individuality and identity. What works with these characters and what doesn't? Are these characters Mary Sue's? Let's begin with Bessie. Although she had no specific colour palette that I can judge, we can focus on her anatomy. A child's mind is endless, thus her design is definitely innovative. The motivation behind it was simply due to the fact it looked nice, which is a weak point, giving it an honest artistic criticism, but the meaning that I have interpreted today, with it being part alien from the planet of imagination, truly makes it a beautiful design. Moral of the story is, don't be afraid to be innovative and unconventional with your designs. Just make sure to know what the effect and meaning is, otherwise it can make the character seem contrived. But if you're 5 or just making characters for genuine fun, don't be afraid to ignore everything I've just said. On to Star. Although her hair was copy-pasted from my MLP mascot at the time, Snowcatcher, it does incorporate fuchsia, my favourite colour back in 2013, into her design. There could have been admittedly a larger use of complementing colours here and there, but I like the use of warm hair against her cool eye colour and monochromatic attire colour. Marzipan Sunday has a nice touch of the green eyes and blue denim complementing her leopard print. I do loathe at myself that I had removed this within Lightning's design, resulting in a lack of complementing colours. However, I see this as a positive, as it makes her scar seem more effectively striking despite it not always being visible. The red does serve as a very stark contrast against the green and blue. In Marianne's design, I love the complementing green dress and red quill. I sometimes feel like the green clashes with the purple, but I have since added black to balance it out. Plus, you have to remember that Marzi's wardrobe consists of more colours than just green. I believe her to suit white a lot, although because she's a painter, she will avert from wearing that colour. What is a Mary Sue? A Mary Sue is a character, usually a self-insert, that is ineffectively as close to perfect as you can get, usually having no flaws. Star Glaze's flaw was her sarcasm coming across as mean. Similarly, Marzipan Lightning was dubbed the bringer of conflict because of it. Marzipan Sunday's flaw was her shyness upon first acquaintance, but her over-energy upon getting to know her more. Marianne's fatal flaw, and mine in real life, is her over-devotion to her craft. Despite motivating and inspiring others around her, often leaves herself feeling burnt out and overworked, also causing her to become isolated from society. Also having agoraphobia and social anxiety and working from home, she is isolated a lot, which makes her seem distant. The closest we can get to a Mary Sue would be Bessie, who didn't have any notable flaws due to only serving as a mentor or voice of reason for the other characters. But due to her detached role in the lore, as well as me being 5, I'm not going to be too critical. Overall, as long as your character has its positives as well as fatal flaws, hamartias and misbeliefs, it will be a successful character personality-wise. Design-wise, all you need to do is bear colour theory in mind and avoid your drawing program's bright default stock colours if you're drawing digitally. These are just my tips and deep criticism on character creation, and you of course don't have to follow it. Just keep creating characters that you can enjoy, as there's no wrong way, unless it's plagiarism. Overall, it is very interesting to see how characters change and develop over time, so I hope you enjoyed listening to mine as I enjoyed sharing and preserving these old characters. Marianne's hair is supposed to be waist length due to... I can't freaking speak. Marzipan Sunday has a nice touch of the green eyes and denim blue jacket complementing... Oh, it's raining. Dystopia.